Cool. All right, let's go ahead and get this started. Hello, YouTube. It's your friendly neighborhood dungeon master, Zach Cole here, continuing my Pathfinder 2nd Edition series, where I'm doing my first look through the Pathfinder 2nd Edition core rulebook. Today we are kind of skipping ahead from Chapter 5 Feats to check out Chapter 9, Playing the Game. We've already kind of seen spells throughout, looking at classes. We are definitely going to kind of skip Chapter 8, Age of Lost Omens. It seems like mainly setting type stuff, which I am interested in and will get to. It's just not high on priority. I'm kind of focused on crunch and how the game functions. So we've skipped equipment spells in Age of Lost Omens and jumping to playing the game. We will then hit game mastering, and then we'll probably hit equipment, and then crafting and treasure. And then if folks want, we can circle back to Age of Lost Omens, or we can just move on to a different book. Apologies for it taking forever for me to do my next video. Life gets in the way sometimes. Work has been insane, but I am here now and excited to go through. This will either be a longer stream / video and we do the whole chapter, or we get through half of it and we do the second one maybe later this week. Just kind of depends on how I'm feeling, how long it takes for us to get through this. Obviously, some of this stuff I'm going to go through fairly quickly because I want to see, I'm not going to go through super quickly because I don't want to miss anything in case there is a something very different from 5th edition, which is what I'm used to. For instance, the idea of a check being over 20 of the DC, or 10 over the DC, is considered a critical success. Obviously very different than 5th edition. 5th edition, a critical success, really, depending on who is DMing the table, either only happens when you roll a natural 20 on the die, or it only happens when you roll a natural 20 in combat on an attack roll. Lots of DMs in 5th edition do not use critical successes in just normal skill checks. Well, obviously, critical success is a key part of how the game in Pathfinder 2nd edition works. So I'm not going to skip over that or try to skip anything, but if I feel like this looks exactly like 5th edition, we'll kind of try to get through as quickly as possible. Expectations? Don't really have any expectations. Some of this stuff I might already be aware of, that I've just figured out by reading all the class and skills chapter. But I'm excited to see, how Pathfinder presents encounter mode. Obviously, is there anything more specific in exploration mode, where 5th edition kind of leaves that up to the dungeon master. There's our rules for the exploration mode, but I feel like a lot of folks won't use it. Hey. Ooh, cookie. Thanks.
Sienna's hat.
Oh boy. Is it gluten-ized?
It's delicious.
That wasn't an answer.
It's an almond flour cookie, but you wouldn't know.
Oh yeah, it's good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It actually kind of looks like a thong more than it looks like Santa's hat.
Who are you talking to?
YouTube.
Okay.
Doesn't it though? Kind of looks like a thong if you turn it that way.
Depends on how you look at it, yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Nom nom. Anywho. She had no idea. Door closed is normally, hey. But she's got friends over. Making cookies. Holiday cookies. Brought me one and it is good. I'm not going to say no to a cookie. So what was I saying? Exploration mode. And then I'm very excited about downtime. So let's see, encounter mode with most intricate obvi. By calling on the players to roll initiative, determine the order of all the actors during their encounter. Series of rounds, with each round lasting 6 seconds in the game world. It's insane, but sure. I get the math, but I would much rather there be like 10 seconds in a round. I think Fate uses 15 seconds in a round. 6 seconds is just so fast. They gain the use of a number of actions, typically 3 in the case of PCs and other creatures, as well as a special action called reaction. These actions, what you do with them, or you affect the world with an encounter. Full rules for encounter mode start at 468. We're on 443. Cool. Then we have exploration mode. This mode, minutes, hours, and even days in the game will pass quickly as characters travel cross country, explore uninhabited sections of a dungeon, or roleplay during a social gathering. Often developments during exploration lead to encounters. And then downtime, characters are at little risk. Passage of time is measured in days or longer. Gonna move this up so then I can then get my mic even closer because I feel like I'm probably talking quietly, but I want you to make sure that you can hear me. So checks, roll d20, calculate the result, compare the result to the DC, and then determine degree of success. Kind of like we were talking about if it's 10 over. So GM has final say. Specific overrides general, yes. Rounding, round down unless otherwise specified. Cool. Multiplying. When more than one effect would multiply the same number, don't multiply more than once. Instead, combine all the multipliers into a single multiplier, with each multiple after the first adding 1 less than its value. For instance, if one ability doubled the duration of your spells and another one doubled the duration of the same spell, you would triple the duration, not quadruple it. Oh, yeah. Okay. And then duplicate effects, only one instance applies using the higher level of effects. Sometimes a rule can be interpreted multiple ways. If a version is too good to be true, it probably is. Work with the group. Yes, thank you. Okay. So modifier is either positive or negative. Bonus is always positive. Penalty is always negative. Excuse me, chat. Nearly all checks allow you to add an ability modifier. Swing a sword usually applies your strength, while remembering the name of the Earl's cousin relies on your intelligence. Then you add your proficiency bonus. That depends on your rank. If you're untrained, your bonus is 0. If you are trained, it is your level +2. Expert, it is your level +4. Master, your level +6. And legendary, your level +8. So at every level, your proficiency rank is going up. And then you do get a bonus when you level up your proficiency rank, which is nice. We then have 3 other kinds of bonuses: circumstance bonus, items bonus, and status bonus. If you have different types of bonuses that would apply to the same roll, you add them all. But if you have multiple bonuses of the same type, you can only use the highest bonus on a given roll. In other words, they don't stack. For instance, if you have a proficiency bonus and an item bonus, you add both. But if you have 2 item bonuses that could apply to the same check, you only add the higher of the 2. Circumstance bonuses. These are I'm kind of interested in. Typically involve this situation. You find yourself, for instance, using Raise a Shield with a buckler grants you a +1 circumstance bonus. Being behind cover gives you a +2 circumstance bonus. If you are both behind cover and raising a shield, you only gain the +2 circumstance bonus for cover, since they're the same type. That makes sense. Item bonuses are granted by some item that you are wearing, either mundane or magical. Item or armor gives you an item bonus of AC, while expanded alchemist tools grant you an item bonus to crafting checks. And then status bonuses come from spells, typically. For example, the 3rd level heroism spell grants a +1 status bonus to attack rolls, perception checks, saving throws, and skill checks if you're under the effect of heroism, and someone casts the bless spell. Your attack rolls would only gain the +1 status bonus. Yep, that makes sense. Penalties work very much like bonuses. You only take the worst of all the various penalties of a given type. However, you can apply both a bonus and a penalty of the same type from the same roll. For example, if you have a +1 status bonus from a heroism spell, but a -2 status from the second condition, you apply them both. So it helps, but you're still not great. Unlike bonuses, penalties can also be untyped, in which they won't be classified as circumstance, item, or status. Okay? You can always add your untyped penalties together rather than simply taking the worst one. For example, when you use the attack actions, you incur a multiple attack penalty on each attack you make after the first one. And when you attack a target that's beyond your weapon's normal range increment, you incur range penalty. Because these are both untyped, if you make multiple attacks at a faraway target, you apply both the multiple attack penalty and the range penalty. Okay, makes sense. Determining the degrees, you critically succeed when it meets or succeeds the DC by 10 or more. It's sometimes called a critical hit when it is an attack roll. Critical failure is the same if you fail a check by 10 or more. If you rolled a natural 20 on the die, your result is 1 degree of success better than it would be by the numbers alone. And then a natural 1. Okay, cool. So you can still roll natural 20s, and it has a special effect where if you rolled a natural 20 and succeeded on a check, but by less than 10, you would still critically succeed because it would move your success to a critical success. And the same with a natural 1. If you rolled a natural 1 and failed, it would be a critical failure. If you succeeded, it would actually be a failure. And if it was you beat the DC by 10 or more, but you rolled a natural 1, you would still succeed, but you would not critically succeed. I like that a lot. I really, really, really dig that. Very cool. So here's ours. I'm good with attack rolls. I've seen multiple attack penalty, but it hasn't. I don't know if it's been spelled out for me. So let's check that out. Oh, so Kurt's letting me know. Let me double check. Let's see. Whenever you attempt a check, you compare your result against a DC. When someone or something else attempts a check against you, rather than both forces rolling against one another, the GM or player, if the opponent is another PC, compares the result to a fixed DC based on your relevant statistics. So the DC is then 10 plus your total modifier. Aha! So you're not... Interesting. But I think that probably... I'm trying to think. So, I mean, obviously attack rolls you wouldn't be rolling, but I guess someone rolling insight against maybe your deception, a PC's deception, instead of the player rolling a persuasion or deception check to compare against the other person's insight, the NPC would roll insight and then would just compare that result to the player's 10 plus their DC, which is 10 plus their persuasion modifier. So interesting. Obviously, like stealth versus perception. So if I roll stealth as a GM, if I roll stealth for a opponent in the like leading up to encounter, I would not allow, like, my players wouldn't get to actively roll a perception check just willy-nilly. They would have to, it would be a stealth versus their perception DC, which I think is actually on. Is there still passive perception? And then, there wouldn't really be any, if there's just a static, like, 1 DC for all kind of stealth checks to beat perception, there wouldn't really be any need for a passive, right? Good catch, Kurt. Thanks for shouting that out to me. I think I still like that. Or I don't have any problem with it. Does it cut down on the times that a player is potentially rolling? Yes. And I think that would be a huge difference for players coming from any game where you roll like a roll off. I think some of my D&D players would be kind of upset if they didn't get a chance to actively participate in combating it. But I still like it, and I think that is more realistic, and I think that makes more sense when you think about it, as opposed to the potential for a highly perceptive ranger where like perception is their thing, noticing things, and then you roll really low. Or for instance, if you are the type of DM to use critical failures or fumbles and skill checks, automatically failing a perception check even though you're very perceptive does kind of suck. Yeah, and then definitely brings out more secret stealth rolls. So like, it would not be. Oh, and Helton in chat mentioned perception. I think it costs an action in an encounter to perceive a stealth, and it's their perception against the stealth DC and not whatever the person might have previously rolled. Interesting. I do like that because it kind of just becomes, say you've got a rogue, high-level rogue, rolls stealth, they roll like a 35, and the joke is kind of like, ha ha ha, you faded from existence, people don't even remember that you exist. I like in Pathfinder 2nd Edition that just becomes, forget the numbers, but let's just say it's a stupid high stealth roll. It most likely beats the person's perception DC by more than 10, so it's just as a critical success. I don't know if there's necessarily a bonus to critically succeed on a stealth roll, but it's very interesting. I like it. All right, jumping over to multiple attack. More attacks you make beyond your first in a single turn, the less accurate you become. The second time you attack, take a -5 penalty, and then the third, a -10. Each check that has the attack trait counts towards your multiple attack penalty. Includes strikes, spell attack rolls, interesting. Certain skill actions like shove, and many others. Some weapons and abilities reduce multiple attack penalties, such as agile weapons, where it's a -4 and a -8 instead of 5 and 10. So if I understand this correctly, it no longer requires a class feat, so in D&D, comparing Pathfinder 2nd Edition and the multiple attack penalty to D&D 5th Edition, doesn't require a class ability or a feat to be able to attack multiple times. You don't have to have be holding a weapon in your offhand in order to make another attack as a bonus action. 3. I don't know if there's a third one. At least those two. And Raven, I believe you're right, and I think it's the same in D&D too. Is like breaking line of sight. That's one of the frustrating things or I have found when I DM new players. It's like I go to attack and then I want to be able to roll stealth, like bonus action hide if they're a rogue, for instance. It's like, okay, well, you're standing in the middle of the open. You used all of your speed to be able to rush in and make an attack. You do not have any more movement left, and there's no way for you to like break line of sight and try to hide. So no, that's always kind of frustrating to try to get the player to understand. Multiple attack penalty applies only during your turn, so you don't have to keep track of it if you perform an attack of opportunity or a similar reaction that lets you strike on someone else's turn. That's nice. Just cuts down on the paperwork of like having to keep track through a round how many attacks you made. Then you have a range penalty, which I'm used to, and then if it's beyond that, it's -2 for each additional increment. An armor class, attack rolls are compared to a special DC called an armor class, which measures how hard it is for foes to hit you with strikes and other attack actions. It is 10 plus your dex mod up to your armor's dex cap, plus proficiency bonus, plus armor item bonus, and then any other bonuses and penalties. So you get to use I'm assuming the proficiency bonus in general is, for armor, goes up the same way your skill proficiency bonuses do. There's no reason to think that it wouldn't. Where your proficiency bonus at level 1, if you are trained, would be 3? From 1 from your level, and 2, so your AC is going up every level. Because it's including a proficiency bonus, which is, if you're at least trained in the armor, you're getting a level bonus in. Wow. So ACs get massive. Spell attack rolls. If you cast spells, you might be able to make a spell attack. Innate spells use your charisma modifier. Focus spells tell you which ability modifier to use. And it looks like the same. D20 plus ability mod, plus proficiency bonus, plus ability, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about... So stride is an action that has the move trait and allows you to move a number of feet up to your speed. You'll often need to stride multiple times to reach a foe who's far away or run from danger. Move actions can often trigger reactions or free actions. However, unlike other actions, a move action can trigger reactions not only when you first use the action, but also for every 5 feet you move during that action. Step lets you move without triggering reactions, but only 5 feet. And then strike is an action that has the attack trait. Okay, so that makes sense. So instead of move being like its own separate special thing, like in 5th edition, moving is called either stride or step. It is a single action. You can either move up to your speed, invoking reactions, or anybody can move 5 feet away max, but not incur reactions, trading off the distance that you are moving for not opening yourself up to attacks or other reactions. Cool. Again, I think it's smart to make all of those things basically, there's probably rogues might get something similar to disengage. I don't remember off the top of my head. I wonder if I can't remember if rogues get like a disengage where they can stride without invoking reactions. Oh, maybe like a half stride, maybe half your speed, like increase your step distance or something like that. Your spell DC is 10 plus your ability mod plus proficiency bonus plus other bonuses and penalties. The perception, perception for initiative. Often you'll roll perception check to determine your order for initiative. When you do this, instead of comparing the result against DC, everyone in the encounter will compare the results, creature with the highest. Sometimes you may be called on to roll a skill check for initiative instead, but you'll compare results. Okay, I am interested in this initiative using skill checks. Like, I mean, obviously in 5th edition, you just have initiative bonus, which is just your dexterity bonus. And you just add that to whatever you roll. I like the idea of being able to say, hey, this encounter isn't starting. There's music coming from somewhere, but I don't know where from. So yeah, interesting. But I like it a lot. Just gives the GM more options. So you have saving throws, which we've kind of figured out. Okay. Wow, you can critically fail and get double damage. That sucks for saving throw. It makes sense, but sucks. Fortune and misfortune. These abilities might allow you to re-roll a failed roll, force you to re-roll a successful one. Okay, you can never have more than one. Is fortune and misfortune basically advantage and disadvantage in Pathfinder? And it's basically like, okay, that's fine. Skill checks we've seen is interesting that when an ability calls for you to use the DC for a specific skill, you can calculate it by 10 plus total mod. Flat checks. It's just, there's a chance something will happen. You don't really get to impact it at all. Only abilities that specify apply to flat checks can change the check's DCs. If more than one flat check would ever cause or prevent the same thing, just roll once and use the highest DC. Secret check. Sometimes you as a player should know the exact result and effect of a check, of course. Secret check. The secret trait appears on everything that uses secret checks. This type of check uses the same formulas, but it's rolled by the GM. If you don't know that a secret check is happening, you can't use fortune or misfortune abilities on that check. But if it would apply automatically, the GM still applies it. If you know that the GM is attempting a secret check, this often happens with Recall Knowledge or Seek. You can usually activate or fortune miss abilities for the check, just tell the GM. The GM can choose to make any check secret, even if it is not usually rolled secretly. Conversely, the GM can let you roll any check yourself, even if that check would usually be secret. Cool. All right, so damage. Roll the damage. Roll the dice. Determine damage type. Applied to. I'm interested in resistance because that has been obviously is probably going to be different. Or I know it's different. Where resistance is like almost like a status with, and I think it's just removes a certain amount of damage. Or 5th edition, it's just half, which sucks. Stealth is common for initiative, says Kurt in chat, for ambushes and the like. That makes sense. And yes, Raven, I did notice that attacks of opportunity are more rare, where it's not everybody gets one. It is a class ability that unlocks attacks of opportunity for you, which, again, I think I like. It makes sense for a high-level martial person to be on their feet enough to be able to attack and see the opening. It doesn't make sense for a low-level wizard to be able to attack with their staff. That's not something that they're normally doing. You typically do not add ability modifier to spell damage from most ranged weapons, or damage from all chemical bombs, yeah. So spells, it's just the roll, the damage die, and then bonuses. You don't get to add any modifiers, which is the same in 5th edition, but sometimes we forget. Persistent damage is a condition that causes damage to occur beyond the... Excuse me, chat. You take specified damage at the end of your turns, after which you can attempt a DC 15 flat check to see if you recover. Sometimes you'll need to have or double, such as the outcome of your strike as a critical hit. Roll damage normally. Then add all your modifiers, bonuses, and penalties, and then double or have it. GM might allow you to roll the dice twice and double the modifiers, bonuses, and penalties instead of doubling the entire result, but this usually works best for single target attacks or spells at low levels. Then benefits you gain specifically from a critical hit, like the flaming weapon rune's persistent fire damage or the extra damage die from fatal weapon trait, are doubled. So it's interesting where 5th edition you just double what's on the die. Pathfinder, double everything except for extra damage that is caused by the fact that it is a critical. Okay. Cool. So if it is immune, you can just ignore all damage of that type. Immunity to critical hits works a little differently. When a creature immune to critical hits is critically hit by a strike, it takes normal instead of double. This does not make it immune to any other critical success effects. Okay. If you're immune to non-lethal attacks, you're immune to all damage from attacks from the non-lethal trait, no matter what other type the damage has. For instance, a stone golem has immunity to non-lethal attacks. This means that no matter how hard you hit it with your fist, you're not going to damage it, unless your fists don't have the non-lethal trait, such as if you're a monk. Gorgeous. Makes sense. Okay, so weakness, whenever you take that damage, you take extra, so it's just +5. If you have a weakness 5 to fire, it's 2d6 plus 5. Resistance, reduce the amount of damage you take by the listed amount to a minimum of 0. Okay, cool. For example, the resistance 10 to physical damage except silver would reduce any physical damage by 10 unless that damage was dealt by a silver weapon. Yep. It's possible to have resistance to all damage. When an effect deals damage of multiple types and you have resistance to all damage, apply the resistance to each type of damage separately. So if an attack would do 7 slashing damage and 4 fire damage, resistance 5 to all damage would reduce the slashing damage to 2 and negate the fire damage entirely. Woof. It's rough, but I do really like, I mean, is it a little bit of extra? It's barely any extra bookkeeping, which is like seems like the plus for, 5th edition is that it's streamlined and there's not as much bookkeeping. And so when you're resistant to something, just have it. It's like, well, you know, like a stone golem's resistance to bludgeoning damage isn't the same as a, I don't know, name anything else with like a resistance, dragon's resistance to fire, you know? Or maybe it is. I don't know. It just seems kind of silly. I like the trait resistance 10. That makes a lot more, like, I've seen like resistance 1, resistance 2 in class stuff, which is fine, but it doesn't seem like a lot. Resistance 10, I mean, you guys tell me if it's more likely to see resistance 1 versus like resistance 10, but I don't know. I like it. So conditions, we'll probably have conditions on the next page. We will actually have conditions on the next page. That's what it says. We have summarized rules and then more in what is probably either the game. No, surely that's in the appendix. And then effects. Okay, so conditions: blinded, broken, clumsy, concealed. Fog or a similar obstruction makes you difficult to see and target. You attack indiscriminately. It's like, that's basically confusion from Pokemon. Okay, I'm not gonna, yeah. Without any of the actual like math behind these, they mean a little bit less to me. Like, it's just basically a definition of the word. Most effects are discrete, creating an instantaneous effect when you let the GM know what actions you're going to use. Firing a bow, moving to a new space, taking something out of your pack, all resolve instantly. Other effects last for a certain duration. For an effect that lasts a number of rounds, the remaining duration decreases by 1 at the start of each turn of the creature that created the effect. Okay. Range and reach, yeah. If you're using a short bow, your attacks take no penalty against a target up to 60 feet away. -2 if the target's over 60 and up to 120. Okay, that makes sense. Maximum distance of 360. Is 360 just... I wonder if the short bow has 360 listed as like... It's on the floor. It's on the ground at this point. Gravity has taken over. One of my Helton says that one of my players was dealing 1d4 plus 14 at level 5 against trolls because his character had the idea to light a torch and strike the monsters with it. Super smart. So 6 range penalties is the maximum according to Kurt. Perfect. That makes sense. Let me I sometimes hesitate to turn on, you know, like chat, because sometimes I don't often, you know, I live stream to very few people, but since we're kind of active, I might want to switch to this so that folks, oh, this is, never mind then. I'll show it to you. This is me. I did this for doing a video on the Expanse RPG. It is, I wonder if I can copy this and just put this. Yeah. I'll just move this over. Cool. It doesn't look as good, but it's there. And so folks maybe watching the video later at home can still see chat. All right. So reach Melee strikes rely on reach. Reach is typically 5 feet. And then larger creatures have, yeah. Unlike with measuring distances, 10-foot reach can reach 2 squares diagonally. Ah, interesting. Well, that's because is it Matt Colville that has a video that says the Pythagorean theorem doesn't exist in D&D? Someone's got one. I forget exactly who it is, but it's a funny video on how, well, not really funny, it's just they did the math of like, it's impossible for the Pythagorean theorem to exist or be true in D&D because otherwise that's not how you would measure distance. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, hey, look. This is actually super orthogonal cone. That just seems a little much. We can create a line like that. Oh, okay. Wow. Burst, you get rid of the corners instead of, well, emanating, you still, wow. This might be taking it a little too far when we talk about when we talk about accuracy, realism, verisimilitude. I cannot say that word, but that is very specific. But hey, I guess, orthogonal. That's insane and crazy, but cool. This would go on my DM sheet. If I used a GM screen, I would need this would need to be on my GM screen. Or I would need to create, I think I've seen Matt Mercer at Critical Role has like either 3D printed or just cut out clear pieces of plastic that match the grid. I would need something like that. Wow, that's crazy. So all that makes sense. Let's look at line of effect. When creating an effect, you usually need an unblocked path to the target of a spell. The origin point of an effect area or the place where you create something within a spell or an effect. This is called a line of effect. You have a line of effect unless a creature is entirely behind a solid physical barrier. Visibility doesn't matter, nor do portcullises or other barriers that aren't totally solid. If you're unsure whether a barrier is solid enough, usually a 1 foot square gap is enough to maintain a line of effect, though the GM makes the final call. An area effect, creatures or targets must have a line of effect to the point of origin to be affected. If there's no line of effect between the origin of the area and the target, the effect doesn't apply. For example, if there's a solid wall between the origin of a fireball and a creature that's within the burst radius, the wall blocks the effect. That creature is unaffected by fireball and doesn't need to attempt to save against it. Yeah. Any ongoing effects created by an ability with an area cease to affect anyone who moves outside the line of effect. And then some effects require you to have a line of sight. As long as you can precisely sense the area and it is not blocked by a solid barrier, you have line of sight. Area of darkness prevents line of sight if you don't have dark vision. Portcullises and other obstacles that aren't totally solid do not. Cool. We've got afflictions. Stages is crazy, but I love it. It actually makes poison seem worth it. Let's see. Jack says he plays on hexes for Pathfinder. That actually makes it. And Raven basically chimes in saying that makes way more sense on a hex grid than square one. And then Raven is a shout out for the PF2 GM screen, which is awesome. Glad to hear that it's actually decent. I have not ever liked any of the Wizard of the Coast GM screens, but at the same time, like, they create their like official GM screens, it seems like almost more specifically for an adventure, like whichever adventure module came out more recently, and it has like adventure stuff on there, and that doesn't But again, I have previously in the past, for maybe the past year and a half or so, have not used a screen. I roll in the open. But yeah, I do fudge things on occasion, but that's a different video. Ooh, yeah, I would need a listing of conditions on my GM screen for sure. I think I would even need one for a D&D game. I don't remember all of the conditions, and there's like 3 times as many in Pathfinder. Okay, let's talk about counteracting, because that's kind of new. Counteract checks compare the power of 2 forces and determine which defeats the other. Successfully counteracting an effect ends it, unless noted otherwise. When attempting counteract check, apply the relevant skill modifier and other appropriate modifiers to your check against the target's DC. If you're counteracting an affliction, the DC is in the stat block. If it's a spell, use the caster's DC. The GM can also calculate a DC based on the target's effect level. For spells, counteract check modifier is your spell casting ability modifier plus your proficiency bonus plus any bonuses and penalties. When you can counteract, what you can counteract depends on the check result and the target's level. If an effect is a spell, its level is the counteract spell, or its level is the counteract level. Otherwise, have its level and round up to determine if it's the counteract level. Okay. On critical success, you can counteract if it's no more than 3 levels higher than your effect. On success, just no more than 1 level. Failure, if it's lower. Oh, interesting. So you can still succeed even if you like technically fail. What you looking for?
Pencils.
Pencils? What are you guys doing?
Craft.
Fun. Do you need the sharpener?
Oh, there's one downstairs.
Okay, cool. All right. Healing and dying. Yeah, we have had yet to talk about this yet. Yeah, so counteract. I'm assuming that counteracting, like counterspell itself has a spell level. That I'm assuming that level increases depending on you casting it at a higher level. And then, so if the spell I'm attempting counteracting is a level 3 spell, and I'm making up the levels because I don't know, but let's say counter spell is a level 1. If I critically succeed on my roll versus their DC, I can end the effect that I'm attempting to end because it is no more than 3 levels higher. If I had succeeded on it, even if I succeeded on it, I could not end the effect because it is more than 1 level higher. Makes sense. Kind of, I think. I get it. It's just assuming that everything has a level, which is something I'm just not used to. All right, let's talk about dying. This emo boy's favorite topic. Yep, we all have HP. When you take damage, you reduce your current hit points by the number equal to the damage dealt. Makes sense. All right, so knocked out. Creatures can be reduced to fewer than 0 hit points. When most creatures reach 0 hit points, they die and are removed from play unless the attack was non-lethal, in which they are instead knocked out for a significant amount of time, usually a minute or more. When undead or construct creatures reach 0 hit points, they are destroyed. PCs, their companions, and other significant characters and creatures don't automatically die when they reach 0 hit points. Instead, they are knocked out and at the risk of death. the GM's discretion, villains, powerful monsters, special NPCs, and enemies with special abilities that are likely to bring them back to the fight, like ferocity, regeneration, or healing magic, can use these rules as well. Cool, up to my discretion. As a PC, when you are reduced to 0 hit points, you're knocked out with the following effects. You immediately move your initiative position to directly before the creature or effect that it reduced you to 0 HP. Interesting, but I really like that because too many times I have seen in 5th edition you keep the same initiative and it just happened to be that PC, that knocked out PC's turn the next time, and so they roll death save and you just immediately it's like, man, we didn't even have any opportunity to try to do something, when once you're dead, it doesn't really, your initiative no longer matters. So while that is a lot of bookkeeping that as a GM, I would struggle to remember if I ran a Pathfinder game, that makes the most sense possible. Gain the Dying 1 condition. If the effect that knocked you out was a critical success from an attack or the result of your critical failure, you gain Dying 2 instead. You have the Wounded condition. If you have the wounded condition, increase your dying value by an amount equal to your wounded value. If the damage was dealt by a non-lethal effect, you're just unconscious as 0. If you take damage while you already have the dying condition, increase your dying condition value by 1 or by 2 if the damage came from a critical hit or your own critical failure. If you have the wounded condition, remember to add the value of your wounded condition to... Wow. So while you're dying, at the start of your turn, which is now directly before the person that killed you, you must attempt a flat check with a DC equal to 10 plus your current dying value. Okay, so if you're dying 1, the DC is 11, dying 2, blah, blah, blah. It's called a recovery check. So if you critically succeed on that check, your dying value is reduced by 2. How could you critically succeed if it's a flat check? Isn't a flat check just based on what's on the die? But the DC is it has to be at least 11. So how would you get an over 20? Right? Or am I crazy? Didn't we just read about flat checks and how they are... only abilities that specific... Okay, so maybe there's abilities out there that allow you to apply flat, bonuses to your recovery check, perhaps. That might make the most sense. But okay, so there are some abilities that provide bonuses specifically to recovery checks. Okay, that's all. I was like, did I misunderstand flat checks? I didn't think so. So when you succeed, you only reduce it by 1. So great, if you succeed the first time, drop my phone. If you succeed the first time and you're okay, cool. You're no longer dying 0, right? Oh, but if you fail, it increases by 1. Oof, it doesn't just not. Oof. When you are dying, you're bleeding out or otherwise at death's door. While you have this condition, you're unconscious. Dying always includes a value. If this value ever reaches dying 4, you die. If you're dying, you must attempt a recovery check at the start of each turn to determine whether you get better or worse. If you lose the dying condition by succeeding at a recovery check and you are still at 0 hit points, you remain unconscious, but you can wake up as described on the next page. You lose the dying condition automatically and wake up if you ever have a hit point or more. Anytime you lose the dying condition, you gain the wounded 1 condition, or increase your wounded value by 1 if you already have that condition. Oof. So there is a consequence. You can't do the yo-yoing, rubber banding thing that so often happens in 5th edition, where it is mathematically, statistically proven it's just better for healers to save all their spells, just do a spell once someone goes unconscious. Here there is an actual penalty for going unconscious or for dying or having the dying trait condition. So even if you get healed, there is a deficit that you're now working with. Well, that's true. Roll everybody in chat letting me know that there's obviously rolling a natural 20. Well, oh, that's true, because critical success isn't just about getting 10 above. If you rolled a natural 20, it turns your success to a critical success. You guys are so smart. Everybody's so smart, and they all said it at the same time. I'm so dumb. So if you're unconscious, you can't act, and you take a -4 status penalty to AC, perception, and reflex saves, and you're blinded and the flat-footed conditions. Yeah, that makes sense. You do fall prone and drop items that you're wielding or holding. If you're unconscious because you're dying, if you're unconscious and at 0 hit points but not dying, you naturally return to a 1 hit point and awaken after sufficient time passes. Minimum of 10 minutes. If you receive healing during this time, yeah. If you're unconscious and also have more than 1 hit point, typically because you're asleep or unconscious due to an effect, you wake up in one of the following ways. You take damage. You receive healing. Someone nudges or shakes you awake during using an interact action. A loud noise being made around you, even though this isn't automatic. At the start of your turn, you can automatically attempt a perception check against the noise DC, waking up if you succeed. DC is 5 for battle. But if they're attempting to stay quiet around you, this perception check uses their stealth DC. Wow. If you're simply asleep, the GM decides you wake up either because you had a restful night's sleep or something. Yeah. All right, so wounded. You've been seriously injured during a fight. Any time you lose the dying condition, you become wounded 1. If you gain the dying condition while wounded, increase the dying condition by the wounded value. The wounded condition ends if someone successfully restores hit points to you with treat wounds, or if you're restored to full hit points and rest for 10 minutes. So there isn't necessarily a... It seems like wounded's a condition... Well, hang on. Is wounded one of the conditions? But you haven't fully recovered. Is there a... Otherwise... I feel like this... They would have told me if there was another bad thing, like, apart with wounded. Other than just, if you die again, you're dying. Like, do you suffer any other kind of differences? Raven, yeah, spare the dying is not usually the best. That's true. So death. After you die, you can't act or be affected by spells that target creatures. And for all other purposes, you are an object. When you die, you're reduced to 0 hit points if you had a different amount, and you can't be brought above 0 hit points as long as you remain dead. Some magic can bring characters or creatures back to life, such as Resurrect, Ritual, or the Raise Dead spell. If you have at least 1 hero point, you can spend all of your remaining hero points at the start of your turn, or when you're done. Your dying value would increase in order to return to 1 hit point, no matter how close to death you are. You lose the dying condition and become conscious. You do not gain the wounded condition or increase its value. That's cool. I like that a lot. Very, very cool. So some spells and abilities can kill you immediately or bring you closer to death without needing to reduce you to 0 hit points first. These abilities have the death trait and usually involve negative energy, the antithesis of life. If you are reduced to 0 hit points by a death effect, you are slain instantly without needing to reach dying 4. If an effect states it kills you outright, you die without having to reach dying 4 and without being reduced to 0 hit points. You die instantly if you ever take damage equal to or greater than double your maximum hit points in 1 blow. Yeah. 10 hit points. Items have hit points like creatures, but the rules for damaging them are different. They have a hardness statistic that reduces the damage the item takes by that amount. Item that takes any damage, the item takes any damage left over. If an item is reduced to 0 HP, it's destroyed. An item also has a broken threshold. If its HP are reduced to this amount or lower, it's broken, meaning it can't be used for its normal function, and it doesn't grant bonuses, but it's not like straight up like rended. You usually can't attack an intended object one on a creature's person. So you can't just try to like hit a creature's sword to try to like break the sword like in combat. Hero points are like inspiration dice, essentially. Yeah, it seems like either, I'm sure I'll get a bigger breakdown of hero points. They kind of actually remind me of fate points in Fate Core, which are like a way for a player to have a bigger, like a direct impact on the story. Actions. Let's see. Try to see kind of where we are in the chapter. All right, I'm gonna go to encounter, like until encounter mode on page 468 and call it a day on this video because we're already over an hour. And it's about dinner time for me here on the East Coast. You have actions, reactions. I love this, the icon key. I think it's gorgeous. Free actions don't cost you any of your actions, nor do they cost your reaction. An activity typically involves using multiple actions to create an effect greater than you can produce with a single action. Some cases, usually with spell casting, an activity can only consist of one action, reaction, or even one free action. Okay. Disrupting actions. When an action is disrupted, you can still use the action or reaction you committed and still expend any cost, but the effects don't occur. In the case of an activity, usually use all actions spent for the activity up through the end of that turn. For instance, if you began cast a spell activity requiring 3 actions, and the first action was disrupted, you lose all 3 actions that were committed. For instance, a leap disrupted midway wouldn't transport you back to the start of your jump, and a disrupted item handoff might cause the item to fall to the ground instead of staying in the hand of the creature. Okay, I don't particularly care about different movement speeds. Treat falls longer than the 1,500 feet as though they were 1,500 feet, 750 damage. Which I would assume would just outright kill most people. Unless you had a max hit points of 375 or more. You can grab an edge as a reaction to reduce the damage from some falls. Excuse me. If you land on a creature must attempt a DC 15 reflex save. Landing on a creature, landing exactly on a creature after a long fall is almost impossible. Wow. All right. So perception. Yeah. All that is kind of self-explanatory, I feel like, or something that barely comes up and I would check later. Detecting creatures. There are 3 conditions that measure the degree to which you can sense a creature: observed, hidden, and undetected. However, the concealed and invisible conditions can partially mask a creature, and the unnoticed condition indicates you have no idea a creature is around. In addition to the descriptions here, you can find these conditions in the conditions appendix. With the exception of invisible, these conditions are relative to the viewer. It's possible for a creature to be observed by you, but hidden from your ally. When you're trying to target a creature that's hard to see or otherwise sense, various drawbacks apply. Most of these rules apply to objects you're trying to detect as well as creatures. GM tracks how well creatures detect each other. For example, you might think a creature is in the last place you sensed it, but it was able to sneak away. Or you might think a creature can't see you in the dark, but it has dark vision. You can attempt to avoid detection by using stealth skill to avoid notice, hide, or sneak, or by using deception to create a diversion. In most cases, you can sense creatures without difficulty and to target them normally. Creatures in this state are observed. Hidden is only barely perceptible. You know what space a hidden creature occupies, but little else. Perhaps the creature just moved behind cover and successfully used the hide action. Your target might be at a deep fog bank or behind a waterfall where you can see some movement, can't determine exact location. Maybe when blinded, or the creature is under the effects of invisibility, but you used the seek basic action to determine its general location based on hearing alone. Regardless, you're flat-footed to a hidden creature. And then when targeting a hidden creature, you have to, before you roll to determine your effect, you must attempt a DC 11 flat check. If you fail, you don't affect the creature, though the actions you used are still expended. I like hidden a lot. A lot. That makes so much more sense. Where there is mechanics involved in trying to affect a hidden creature, and it doesn't make hide either the most OP thing ever or totally unusable. Like, there isn't a middle ground in 5th edition. So if a creature's undetected, you don't even know what space it occupies. You're flat-footed to it, and you can't easily target. You can use a seek basic action to help you find the creature, usually making it hidden instead of undetected. But if a creature's undetected, that doesn't necessarily mean you're unaware. You might suspect an undetected creature is in the room with you, even though you're unable to find the space. Unnoticed covers creatures you're entirely unaware of. Targeting an undetected creature is difficult. If you suspect there's a creature around, you can pick a square and attempt an attack. This works like targeting a hidden creature, but the flat check and attack roll are both rolled in secret by the GM. The GM won't tell you why you missed. Nice. Very cool. So, like, GM rolls everything for you. You're not sure if you didn't hit because it wasn't there to begin with, or because you missed a hit, like the hidden check, or because you succeeded the hidden check but just missed the AC normally. Cool. So then concealed, when you target a creature that's concealed, you have to attempt a DC 5 flat check. Then when it's invisible, you can use seek to attempt to figure out the location, making it only hidden. And then if you're already observing it, when it becomes invisible, it starts out hidden. Cool. All right, hero points. GM's in charge of awarding hero points. Usually each character gets a hero point at the start of a session and can gain more by performing heroic deeds, something selfless, daring, or beyond. You have a maximum of 3 at a time, and you lose hero points at the end of a session. I kind of hate that it's called hero points because I want to automatically call it HP, but you can't call it HP. So you can spend a hero point to reroll a check, and you have to use the second result. This is a fortune effect, which means you can't use more than 1 hero point on a check. And then you can spend all of your hero points to avoid death. That's really cool. Nice. You should describe your heroic deed when you use a hero point, for sure. Nice. Okay. Cool. So I get it. I actually kind of expected a little bit more effects, like abilities to use hero points for something. And if I could see a lot of... Sorry, chat. I can see a lot of like storytelling focused 5th edition DMs moving to a Pathfinder 2nd edition and then allowing extra uses of hero points for more storytelling reasons. Like I would say maybe automatically succeeding on a skill check, provided the GM allows it, like having that conversation. Could see maybe spending all of your hero points to gain an extra action, as long as that action was heroic in some way, like selfless, daring, beyond normal expectations. Just something to a storytelling element to increase the feeling of like the dramatic, positive, heroic feeling. But I like that's already there, and it's super easy to attach things to it. That is totally up to the table and the GM. And Helton's let me know. 1st edition used hero points, and there was a lot of different uses. Maybe I research hero points in 1st edition to check out and see what those are. And seeing if it kind of fits what I was thinking. Yeah. All right, so this was part 1 of chapter 9, playing the game. Next video, we'll jump into the actual modes, which is kind of what I was expecting this video to be, but kind of getting the exact actions, like all the general actions that you can use, where I just don't know because it's all just kind of new to me. I love that this is based, I mean, this is Roll20, right? I mean, I guess it's any virtual tabletop, but that, I mean, that looks like Roll20 to me. So that's still a good chunk of time that we will spend on the next video looking at encounter mode, exploration mode, and downtime. And then let me know in the comments if there is something better to jump to after this to go talking about the Game Master chapter. Like if it doesn't make sense to do like jump to equipment. If I end up having like 20 minutes to do a quick equipment video, I might jump in and do an equipment video before. But I know my next few days are slammed and won't be able to do a video until at least Wednesday. So we shall see. But anywho, thank you everybody for sticking around and watching this stream, looking at Pathfinder 2nd edition for me for the first time. Thank you all, my experts in chat. Thank you all for engaging and helping me figure out this new game system. I have a ton of fun doing these. I apologize for it being a while since I last did one, but hopefully we'll kick back up and finish the Pathfinder 2nd edition core rulebook relatively soon, maybe by the end of the year. We'll wrap up this immediate series before jumping into either more Pathfinder stuff, since that seems to be where most of my subs end up wanting the material. But if I will probably continue to do more game systems too that I'm interested in. Like I'll probably do some more Expanse RPG videos, and maybe do some more high level Fate Core videos. I talk about them so much in my Pathfinder videos. Maybe it piques your interest in the system. So anywho, thank you guys so much for watching and hang out and stream or watching later. Leave me in, if you liked the video, hit like. If you enjoy my content and would like to see more of it, hit the subscribe button so you can at least get the next video in your feed. If you're interested in the live streams that I do these and being able to hang out with those of us and hang out and chat, ring the bell next to the subscribe button so that you get notified when I go live. Anywho, thank you so much. We will talk to you later. Bye.